Hey everybody, it's MyklSkeleton here. Today we're going to be taking a look at Herbaceous. This is a pretty simple card game that involves collecting sets and pushing your luck a little bit. It plays 1 to 4 players in about 20 minutes, and really the 2 to 4 player game is the same. I'll go over that in the beginning, and then there's a solo variant included in the box that I'll go over at the end. It's put out by Pencil First Games and What's Games. It was designed by Steve Finn, Eduardo, Baraf, and Beth Sobel did the art. It's a very beautiful game that I picked up because my wife loves gardening, and I figured this might be a game she might like. And with that being said, let's take a look at how to set up and play Herbaceous. Herbaceous includes 63 herb cards in 7 different herbs. There's sage, saffron, lavender, tarragon, dill, rosemary, and bay. There's also 9 special herb cards in 3 different herbs. There's mint, chive, and thyme that are valued 1, 2, and 3. To set up the game, each of the players chooses one of the 4 colors. They take the private garden token of that color and the 4 special pots with the color on their back. To set up your playing area, put your private garden token between you and the middle of the table. Leave a little bit of space for your private garden, and then put the 4 pots at the bottom of your playing area. Also, each player should take a game summary card. On one side it shows the containers that you have, and on the other side it shows the general play of a round. Once all the players have taken their private garden marker and their 4 pots, you're going to set aside this special herb biscuit token to the side of the game where all players can reach it. Then you will also shuffle up all the other cards and remove cards depending on the number of players. So with 4 players, you're going to remove 0 cards from the game. With 3 players, you're going to remove 12 cards. And with 2 players, you're going to remove 24 cards. Once you've removed the cards, shuffle everything else up and put the draw pile next to the herb biscuit. The player summary card shows you what you do on a turn. First, you may pot herbs, and that's optional. Second, you must plant to the community garden and to your private garden, and that's mandatory. Then play passes to the player on your left, and they do the same thing. Now, on the very first turn of the game, potting herbs is not done. So first I'm going to show you how to plant, and then we'll come back and show you how to pot after that. You flip over the top card of the deck. You look at it. You can choose whether to put it in the community garden, which means it's available to everyone, or you could put it into the private garden, which means it's only available to you. Once you choose one of the 2 areas, you flip over the second card and place it in the other area. Once you're all done planting, play passes to the player on your left. They will optionally pot a plant and then go through their own planting phase. At a certain point during the game, you're going to want to pot herbs. That means you're going to take cards from the community garden and your private garden and put them into one of your 4 pots. Let's go over the 4 different pots in the game. The first one is the large pot, and you need to put identical herbs into this pot. So let's say you take 5 rosemary cards from the community and your personal garden. You're going to cover up all the numbers up until the 5 because you've got 5 rosemary. And it's going to score you 18 points at the end of the game. You're just going to keep those face down so nobody can see them, but keep exposed how many points you're getting at the end of the game. Next, we have the wooden planter, and in this one, we can only pot different herbs. So let's say we have 3 different herbs here. We've got dill, saffron, and rosemary, 3 different herbs. We will cover up everything, exposing the 3, which will get us 4 points at the end of the game. Next, we have small pots. In this one, we can only pot different pairs of identical herbs. So let's say we have 2 of dill, 2 saffron, and 2 sage. That's 3 different pairs, and that's 6 cards. So we will cover up until we expose the 6, which gets us 12 points at the end of the game. And finally, we have the glass jar. You can do 1 to 3 of any herb. So let's say we have 2 sage, 1 saffron. we can pot those into the glass jar. We would cover up because we've got 3. That'll give us 6 points at the end of the game. The interesting thing about the glass jar is that if you pot any special herbs, the 1, 2, or 3, you will get those points bonus at the end of the game. The catch is if you're the first person to plant both a 1, 2, and a 3 into the glass jar, you will also be able to take the special herb biscuit card, which gets you 5 extra points at the end of the game, in addition to the 6 that you will score for planting these into the glass jar. The special herbs numbered 1, 2, and 3 in the deck, there's multiples. They can only be planted in the glass jar. They cannot be planted in any other pot. Note that once all 4 of your pots are filled, you will skip the potting phase, but you will still do a planting phase and draw cards to put into the community garden and your private garden. Once the draw pile is exhausted, that triggers the end of the game. Everyone keeps taking turns until they've potted everything they can, or there's nothing else they can do. To score your points at the end of the game, you'll get 1 point for each herb in your private garden. If you received the herb biscuit during the game, you will get 5 extra bonus points. Then you'll go through and add up the points that each of your pots is worth, and you'll score extra points for any special herbs that you've planted in your glass jar. After everyone has added up all their points, whoever's got the highest score is declared the winner of Herbaceous. Now that you know how to play the regular game, I'm going to show you the solo variant. For a single player game, you're going to remove exactly half the cards from the deck. That's 36 of them. Put the remaining 36 cards to form a draw pile. Flip the top card to form a discard pile. That's 1 card in the discard. Then you're going to flip 2 cards to put into the community garden. And then you're going to flip 3 cards to put into your private garden. So the changes to gameplay is instead of drawing 2 cards during the planting phase, you're going to draw 3, and you're going to draw them 1 at a time. You have to decide whether to put this card in the community garden, the private garden, or the discard pile. And you're going to have to put 1 in each for the 3 cards you draw. So let's say we decide to put this in the community garden. This one we're going to put in our private garden, and then finally that one's going to have to go to the discard pile. In the solo game, you are allowed to pot on your first turn if you so choose, and the other major rule is if there are ever 5 cards in the community garden, they are all discarded immediately. The solo game ends when a player cannot pot any more herbs or when the draw pile is exhausted. You are then allowed to pot 1 last set of herbs if you can. Then you're going to add up your score just like is in the normal multiplayer game, and they have a handy chart here so that you can compare your score with how you did. If you got less than 37, you're a fledgling grower. If you got 57 or more, you're a true green thumb harvester, and everything in between. What's neat about the solo game is that you only use half of the deck, so immediately once you're done and you score, you can just grab the second half of the deck that you didn't use before, shuffle it up, and play a second game. So you can really play 2 games back to back really easily. They also give you a high score target for both games back to back. If you can score 114 or more points, then you're doing really good. You've got 2 green thumbs. All right, so that's how to set up and play Herbaceous. What do I think about it? Me and my wife picked it up basically on our love of gardening, and I must say this is a decent game. It's just an okay game. It wasn't anything like I expected. Playing 2 players isn't the most exciting. We haven't really played it with 3 or 4 players enough to tell how different it is. I actually like this game better solo because you use half the deck to play a solo game. You can basically play 2 games in 1 for a solo game, and I think it works pretty good like that. As a 2-player game, we liked it, but there weren't a whole lot of decisions to be made. It was mostly just how long are you going to wait before you're potting your plants. And while that was interesting, it didn't hold our attention span for very long. But if you're looking for a relaxing game, I think this fits the bill because the artwork is relaxing. It's got a lot of nice artwork of the herbs, and you can kind of play it on autopilot. So you pretty much just draw 2 cards, figure out what you're doing with them, and once in a while you pot your plants when you decide that it's time to do that. So yeah, that's Herbaceous. If you like this video, video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing for future videos. And with that, MyklSkeleton is out. Keep on gaming.